We're going to let John, have a breath, and then we're going to go ahead and start the meeting since it's 7 o'clock.
Start the meeting.
And I'm going to call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum, and I have checked to make sure that we can hear each other. So with that, good evening. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel, and that this meeting of the Finance Committee is being conducted remotely. The town of Lunenburg, in response to the COVID, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent its spread. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town website on the COVID-19 Information Center page, accessed through the town manager's webpage, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Public comment will be available at the end of the meeting, so if you are unable to participate otherwise and want to make a public comment, please send an email to tbirchfield@lunenburgonline.com, and Birchfield is spelled with a U. And we will read that comment into the record at the end of the evening. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All votes taken at the time of this meeting will be roll call votes. With that, a few announcements. Actually, I only have one announcement, and it's a happy announcement. So we have a couple of people who have bit the hook, and they're trying now to set up the Finance Committee appointing committee meeting for next Wednesday evening, the 15th. And if all goes well with that, and we don't scare off any potential members, then we may actually come back here on the 23rd with a full quorum, or a full 7-member board. In straightening your thing out, I think that they still have to reappoint you. So on the 15th, you will be reappointed. And then given that, I'm looking to move the agenda item to reorganize the committee to the 23rd when everyone will be here, and then Jay will be able to participate fully. And that's all I have for announcements. So with that, I am happy then to open it up to public comment from anybody from the committee.
If there's an agenda item to cover this, we can do so. I'm trying to pull up the agenda and I don't have it on this side computer that I'm using. To discuss the debt project area, should we discuss that out of order, or do we have an agenda item to cover that?
Well, no, we can discuss it out of order, and we can discuss it now. Basically, from my going back and forth with the Attorney General's office, or whoever it was that I was talking to about the open meeting law, I think as long as I don't call you a subcommittee, and as long as it's just people working on the debt protocols, and there's no more than 3 of you at any one time working on that, then we do not have to follow open meeting law as relates to that group. I think where I was getting lost was the original question I was asking was to the question of subcommittees, which actually this wouldn't be a subcommittee because we don't have a debt subcommittee. Like the school committee has all of these standing subcommittees that do fall under open meeting law because they're identified that way. Unless the committee would like us to treat it like a subcommittee and create one, in which case everything would have to be scheduled through the town manager's office.
Yeah, so I did not schedule a meeting because of the email that you forwarded me out of an abundance
Okay.
of caution here. And I did share the email with Dave and John. I'll be a bit late because I was delayed in getting to my email. So with that assumption, we would, because we had worded it during the last meeting as a subcommittee. So I think you would have
Right.
to, and we did not vote on this. So I think you would basically just have to, by proclamation, withdraw that, appoint myself to lead a working group, and I run it informally and come back and report on the progress of the working group on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think that's fine, and I think that's legal, and we don't have to then worry about minutes and postings or anything else like that. The other thing that I would just caution would be, as you're working on it, you can then also, if you wanted to engage other members of the subcommittee from time to time, as long as you don't invite more than 2 other people to a meeting to discuss stuff or to work on stuff or to just get together, then it doesn't matter which 3 people are meeting.
And to be clear, we're talking about 3 people who are members of the finance committee. For example,
Right.
if we were to invite a member of the public to participate, in fact, I just saw a phone number that I recognize that you may have an interest in inviting. That would not be, we would not be precluded from inviting any public participation.
That's correct. It would just be related to the quorum, the number of people present from the finance committee.
Okay.
Does that then mean that Peter could actually invite other members of the FinCom as long as there are sort of two other, not to exceed 3 members? So therefore, he could mine the advice of other members?
Yeah, I mean, basically, okay, so Dave's already made clear that for a period of time, he may be completely unavailable. So if somebody else wanted to participate during that time, Peter's more than welcome to, like invite somebody else to talk. Or if somebody else was interested in, just following along with what's going on, again, as long as he doesn't invite more than 2 members of the finance committee to get together to talk about that, then we're good.
Well, that's great because it's a broad topic.
Well, it absolutely is, and I think the fact that we didn't have that we didn't have when we were going through all of the policy revisions and other projects that we've worked on in the past, I know that we didn't create subcommittees, just so that we didn't have to go through the nightmare of all of the postings and the minutes and all that other stuff. So, and we also never we never worked with more than 2, probably 2 at a time. But again, basically, as long as there's no more than 3 people or 3 FinCom members at a time, we're good.
Terry,
Heather,
I think town manager has, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I see it. Yep,
Okay.
Yep, got it. Thanks. Heather?
I would just caution against, other members joining that group, even if the 3 active participants aren't in the same group, just because would be a potential serial communication.
You're right. I'm sorry. Yep. That makes more sense.
Well, I think, obviously, I'm pretty sensitive to this, and will do my utmost to make sure that we remain in compliance. I'd also ask that, for the next couple of months, we just make this a standing agenda item, and we'll report as work is completed and give a regular status. If a meeting comes and we haven't made progress, we'll just skip over it. But I think at least for the next couple of months, we just make it a regular agenda item, and we'll report progress as we go.
Okay. I have someone here on the phone, and I want to make sure I get a name on there instead of the phone number. So could I have a name?
Dave Rogers.
Hi, Dave. You happen to call in the middle of public comment. Do you have one?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I give that public comment now?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. My comment deals with the Board of Selectmen's meeting on Tuesday evening, where they discussed with the superintendent of schools and the business manager for the schools the issue surrounding payment of transportation expenses to the D bus company. I don't have to go into specificity about numbers and that kind of thing because my comment is really a broad-based one, and I'd like for the FinCom to discuss this at some particular point in time. My question is this, that if the town does not have all the money necessary to fund the budget adequately, and may, in fact, have to lay off employees and cut expenses further, why would we ever pay for busing that never happened? And that is my comment and my question, and I would appreciate some sort of input from the FinCom on that. Thank you so much.
Okay. I think I could go at it, but I'm not sure that it would be appropriate for me to go at it. It's probably because I'm not sure what the discussions were with the school committee. I know that it was an issue that came up for a lot of school districts over the last year when the bus companies were kind of caught short when schools were canceled for first they were canceled for a month, then they were canceled through to the end of the year. And whatever the negotiations were in terms of trying to work through that, I know that there were a lot of different school districts that were involved. Now, whether the fact that the Board of Selectmen have already taken an action to pass on that opportunity to spend, and again, we're talking about last year's money, not this year's budget, but since they've already taken the option to pass on that, then I think for some people it was more just trying to make sure that the bus company is still in a position to be ready to start up when we're ready to start up. I'm going to go to Mr. Beardmore.
Yeah, I had intended to talk about this under committee reports, but since it's come up, I think it's appropriate to discuss it now. So when I reported on this issue at our last meeting, I had missed the fact when it was discussed in the school committee meeting that this needed to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. I just whiffed on it and didn't realize it until I saw it on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen. You know, I think ultimately the Board of Selectmen got to where it needed to be, which is there are two pieces of information that we don't have about this that we really need to have to be able to make a decision either way. The first is, are we entered into a contract with a vendor that is in such a precarious financial situation that they may not be able to execute on that contract come fall? And if that's the case, is there something that can be done to prevent that? Because were that eventuality to unfold, it would be extremely disruptive. So that's question number one, and we don't have any insight or answer to that question. And question number two is, although this would come as a payment for services not delivered, there are in fact investments that vendor needs to make to be able to deliver services both in the past and in the future, specifically taxes, leases, general operating expenses that need to be done so that you can put a bus on the road. And if we were to pay for that, and we're not obligated legally to pay for that, what assurances come with that? So let me give you an example. Neshoba and North Middlesex decide to make a payment, and Lunenburg decides not to. And D bus service finds itself in a position that they can only execute on a portion of the contracts that they're obligated to execute on. Does Lunenburg get left out? Or does that payment come with an assurance that we're going to be okay come September? And again, there's no answer to that question. And frankly, that question may not be answered. And so, both Dave and I participated in the meeting. We made comments during this discussion. Frankly, I thought that the discussion got a little off course, but eventually it came back to needing to get that information. And short of having that, I think that the Board of Selectmen needs to hold until we have more information. And I think that that's where we're at.
Okay. Mr. Passios.
Yep, I just want to piggyback on the comments that Peter made. I agree that, and I applauded the Board of Selectmen for questioning the situation. First of all, I felt the school committee kind of pushed that through and decided to pay the amount with very little discussion and discussion, especially of pros and cons and what effect it could have one way or the other. I also agree that the position they took, and Peter gave us a synopsis of that they needed more information, is key to making the final decision. In my final comments and public comment at the end of the meeting, I stated that at this time, I'm not in favor of the payment being made. But I could be persuaded with better information. Thanks.
According to Google Books.
Then, okay, do we have any other public comment from a member of the committee? Public comment from a member of the public? Seeing no hands, I'm going to move on with the agenda. On the agenda, we have Town Manager, Finance Director reports. Do we have a report?
I have some items that we discussed it was part of my town manager report on Tuesday to the board. So I'll share those tonight. Somewhat related to finances, all the Saliba property acquisition, it was finalized on June 24th. And I submitted all the reimbursement requests to the state for the park and land grants. And they acknowledged receipt. So that's pretty much finalized. We'll just wait to receive the checks in the mail. The property at 17 and 23 West Street, we also closed on that property on June 24th. And that will positively affect our certified free cash in the fall with that sale of that property. Updates related to workers' comp, liability, and property and health insurance. Our insurance company has provided some financial relief in a couple different ways. One was that they have delayed. Normally, we have to make our payment at the very beginning of July in order to receive a 3% discount. And they've delayed that till September 15th. So we have time to make that payment and still receive the discount. The other very significant way was the Maya Health Trust Board of Directors approved a relief package designed to support the membership. And they released 25 million of the reserves back to the membership. And this was in the form of what they called a premium holiday, which affected our July health insurance premium. So employees received a 50% discount on their July health insurance premium, and the town and school did as well for our July payment. So that equates to roughly 50,000 in savings on the town side for July and approximately 118,000 on the school side. So we're reserving those funds for the fall town meeting. And I've asked the school superintendent to reserve them as well. And we also received participation and dividend credits from Maya totaling $16,778. So that will go towards reducing our fiscal 21 insurance payment as well. For budget updates, the legislature passed a compromise Chapter 90 bill for municipal road and bridges totaling $200 million. Our apportionment for fiscal 21 is $415,929. And so it's essentially the same as this past fiscal year, with the exception that in this past fiscal year, they had a supplemental budget bill, which added additional funds to Chapter 90. So our total for fiscal 20 was $456,114. On June 26th, Governor Baker signed a $5.25 billion interim budget for fiscal year 21 that allows the state to pay their bills for July in the absence of a final budget bill. And this funds the local aid payments at the fiscal 20 cherry sheet amounts. So for our July payment, we will receive the fiscal 20 amount that we received last year. And on my weekly call, we have weekly calls with the Lieutenant Governor on Tuesdays, and it was relayed they're going to be focusing heavily on the next couple of weeks on the fiscal 21 budget, and they'll have more information by the end of the month as far as revenues, as well as they're pushing heavily with our U.S. contingent, U.S. Senator and Representative contingent, to try to create more flexibility with the CARES Act money, and that would provide relief for revenue loss for cities and towns. And that's essentially it.
I'm going to open it up at this point for anybody that might have questions for Heather related to any of that, because I know that you're going to be leaving the meeting shortly after this. So, Peter?
Yeah, just a few questions for clarification. The West Street property, when did that transfer happen?
June 26th.
Okay. So that
The closing was the 24th, and we received the funds on June 26th.
out of curiosity, if that had happened in July, would those funds be available for free cash, or would they be basically encumbered for another year?
No, it wouldn't have gone towards our certified free cash.
Okay. With respect to the savings on the health insurance premiums, is your expectation that money would essentially be reappropriated come fall town meeting?
Yes.
So we're just not gonna fully spend those lines, or?
Right.
Okay. And the Chapter 90 funds, you could refresh my memory. How does that wash against what our Chapter 90 expectations were for the budget?
It doesn't, because it's a reimbursement, so it doesn't play into the budget at all.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Dave?
Yeah, one of my questions was answered with the Chapter 90 question. The second one kind of goes back to the discussion about the potential payment for non-services of busing. Just one note I'd like to make is that the discussion has been that this payment is to D-Bus. It's to two entities, not just D-Bus. Want everybody to be clear about that. The other question I have is, can I assume that amount has been encumbered from fiscal 20? So if it does not get approved, that also flows to free cash automatically?
It would be liquidated and, yep.
Okay,
And
thank you.
John, you had a question?
I did actually, with respect to the workers' comp. But our unemployment went from for the town went from 3% to 14%. How much does that affect the unemployment in the town employees, or does it? Have we had a lot of?
we haven't had any layoffs.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, and then Ashley, just a question from as we were talking about the bus and the payment of services not delivered, although it wasn't that the services were not delivered, they were not needed. our opinion is not, or our recommendation is not requested. So I don't know whether it would be appropriate or not to ask Mr. Cassidy if he was available to come to a meeting and just review it. I still don't expect any committee will ask us for our opinion, but I think it might be something that would be worth having a discussion about here, so that if anybody did want to know how we were weighing in, at least we would have had a discussion and possibly more information. Or is that something that's more appropriately left for the Board of Selectmen to address at their, because I don't know when they're taking it up again. And if they'd be taking it up before we meet again, then it would be moot. Do you know if they're taking it up within the next 2 weeks?
Possibly the 21st, but it all will depend on if we have the sufficient information to meet again.
Okay. I mean, I could go ahead and extend an invitation regardless for the 23rd, just to understand it better. But if the decision has already been made in advance of that, it might be an enlightening discussion, but that would be about it. But we can talk about that later. I won't tell you up for that. And then with that, I guess, is that it for, I'm sorry, Peter, I see a different hand. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just have one more question for the town manager and the finance director, or comment, which will lead to a question. Last year, you folks kept us very well informed as to the process and the calendar for free cash. I think this year, free cash is going to be especially important, given what I've heard in terms of a lot of stuff that is probably being rolled over now into free cash, as well as our likelihood of need free cash to fund shortfalls come fall town meeting. Has there been any discussion with DOR and whoever goes about certifying free cash as to the process and calendar and expectations, given that everything seems to be running slower right now?
Karen, do you want to answer?
Well, I mean, I don't think that we'll have any issues with the free cash being certified any later than it has in the past, based upon my conversations with our rep at DOR. And typically, I think, I'm trying to remember when it was certified last year, but typically I think it would be sometime in October that we would receive the certification.
Yeah, that was my recollection. Again, I'm just concerned that everything seems to be moving slower, and if DOR has some...
I haven't heard anything about there being any potential delay in that certification process, so I mean, as of right now, I wouldn't anticipate that we would have a problem. Certainly, if I hear anything otherwise, I will inform the committee and let you guys know, but I don't think so.
I'd appreciate it personally if we could inquire. I mean, obviously, if we find ourselves in a town meeting without that free cash certified, we'll have, probably misaligned ourselves substantially. So I'm just trying to think forward, forward thinking and think, okay, what else could possibly go wrong this year? Well, that's something that could go desperately wrong.
Well, I can tell you too that when you submit for free cash certification, one of the things on the checklist that they ask is when, because there are several communities, obviously, and especially this year, that have fall town meetings and are looking for that free cash to be available for appropriation. So they specifically asked as part of the checklist when and if that town meeting is, so that they can provide you with that certification prior to that date.
Okay. Well, I'd appreciate it if you would both keep very close tabs on.
I will certainly do that.
Thank you.
And then I guess that will just, like as a backup question to that, or a follow-up question to that would be, at what point does the fall town meeting, how much lead time is there between the being open for the warrant and the town meeting? Is it the same as a regular town meeting?
So we, the selectmen call the special town meeting for a November meeting would have to be done at the beginning of September. And the warrants usually open until the end of September.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's nothing else for Heather, then we might be able to cut you loose. And thank you. Okay, moving on from the reports. We have 2 sets of minutes from Peter. Did people have a chance to review them?
I did.
And do we want to take any action on the minutes this evening?
I
would
think,
just comment real
Everybody's
quick
on.
that Terry pointed out to me that on the April 9th minutes on item 7 committee reports, I had a incomplete sentence regarding follow up on the meeting that we had with the representatives from Boston. So I corrected that sentence so that it made sense.
Okay, and if you want to just basically alert us to what the change was, if anybody's ready to make a motion on that, but we can certainly include it in the motion.
The last sentence of item 7 now reads, he will follow up with the town manager, meaning Dave Passios will follow up regarding the meeting with Representative Hay and Senator.
Okay. John?
well, first of all, thank you for catching that, Terry, because I'm usually the nudge that does catch that stuff. I really feel awkward when I do, Peter, because the minutes are superb otherwise. So it's like arguing brushstrokes with Michelangelo. So yeah, I would recommend approval of the April 2nd and April 9th minutes.
Second.
We're doing April 9th and, okay, wait, April 9th and April.
April 2nd then.
Do we have April 2nd to vote on too?
We had 2 sets of minutes.
It was 9 and 16.
9 and 16, okay.
April 2nd has been approved.
April 9 and 16, my error.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay,
Dave
Mr. Passio
Passios.
seconded. So, all in favor? Mr. Beardmore,
Yes.
did you say yes?
Yes.
Mr. Passios?
Yes.
Mr. Henshaw?
Yes.
Come on, Jay, unmute. Mr. Simeon?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Minutes, aye for myself. Minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you again, Peter. Awesome job.
Thank you.
And then with that, we're pushing off the committee reorganization until the meeting on the 23rd. So we're going to skip right over the next agenda item. And then again, at that meeting, hopefully we'll have a full board. Do we have any committee reports? We have no committee reports.
Terry, I have 2 very quick things. TC
Okay.
Passios committee was due to meet, I believe, next week. That has been moved to, I'm missing my note here, but I believe it was July 29th. The architects need a little bit more time to have an appropriate presentation. So that's been pushed off a little bit. Parks Commission announced, or we had a meeting last Thursday evening, marathon meeting for us, 2.5 hours. And we voted to open the beach this coming Monday. And we have an emergency meeting scheduled for this Sunday evening. We've got a couple of things that we need to iron out before the opening on Monday.
Okay. No other committee reports. Then we will open it up for any closing public comments. Does anyone have a public comment that they want to add at this time? Mr. Beardmore.
Yeah, in working on minutes this week, I found myself reviewing the YouTube video for the joint committee meeting that we had with the Board of Selectmen on the 28th of April, which is illustrative of how far behind I am on the minutes. But nonetheless, it was more than 2 months ago, and it occurred to me that despite the assurances and commitments that our representatives made around their priorities to local aid and getting the budget issues resolved, we haven't heard much of anything from any of them. And in that time, we also have a new representative representing 3 precincts in the town of Lunenburg. So I'm wondering if it might be appropriate if we re-extend an invitation to our legislators for a meeting to update us on all things local aid.
Sure. We can extend that. Mr. Passios?
Oh, I thought I was muted, but I have the mic on. Yeah, this comment I'm making at every meeting that I'm attending, whether it's FinCom, BOS, or whatever, as a member of the public at the end of each meeting. I'm following very closely the movement of the charter through the process in Boston. In conversation with Dean Tran's office, we got it pushed out of the Senate to the House of Representatives, where it has sat since the first week of June. It was sent to a steering and scheduling committee, and no action has been taken on it in roughly 30 days. The bill number is S2754, so that would be Senate Bill 2754. Presently sits at the House of Representatives in a steering committee, and I'm asking citizens of Lunenburg to contact their representatives. As Peter just mentioned, we have 2 of them in town that cover some portions of the town, and ask them to push this forward. It's been over a year. There hasn't been enough advocacy for it to move it forward. They've been able to move other home rule petitions through very quickly. The city of Gardner got one pushed through recently, and some other towns. There are provisions within the charter, most charters and home rule petitions, that are key to operations of the town entities, especially in these circumstances that we find ourselves in. And I do not understand why we're not pushing real hard to get this charter finalized and in force. Thank you.
Dave, thank you for your persistence and following through on this stuff. I'm reminded of a comment that Dave Rogers made many years ago at a Board of Selectmen over some minutia that Joe Bellotta had followed up on. And, the crux of the comment was, if he didn't do it, nobody else would, and it would invariably fall back in a negative way on Lunenburg. So thank you for doing that. It's thankless,
Thank you.
crazy work that you do. And I, for one, speaking for me, appreciate it.
It's been a great
John?
experience to be able to communicate directly with our senators and representatives. Also, it's a new experience for me. So it's been enjoyable, and I hope it's fruitful if I keep at it. Thank you.
Terry?
Go ahead, John. Yep.
I'm not interrupting anybody, just back to Peter on the minutes. We have there are a few sets of minutes that are still in the pipeline. I don't know if this is acceptable or not, but I'm willing to contribute my time in going over the tapes putting together a rough draft of the minutes for your approval, if you'd like to get ahead of the curve before you finally say goodbye to the thankless task of being a secretary.
Well, who says I'm giving it up?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you're not.
Who says we're going to let him give it up?
I saw you shake your head rather decisively the last meeting when it came up. Maybe I misinterpreted that, Peter. I'm sorry.
John, your offer of assistance is greatly appreciated, and I will be in touch very shortly to coordinate with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Okay. Then with that, I see no public comment from anybody in the mailbox, and no one else from the public here. So, again, our next meeting will be July 23rd, 7 p.m. And unless anyone has any parting comments to make, then I'm more than happy to take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Did I have a second from John?
Yes, second.
All in favor? Okay. Mr. Beardmore,
Yes.
Mr. Passios,
Yes.
Mr. Simeon,
Yes.
Mr. Henshaw,
Yes.
and yes for myself. So with that, see you in a couple weeks. Oh, and enjoy
See you.
the nice weather,
Thank
if we
you.
have any.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night.
everyone.
Take
Take
care.
care.